Hi guys, my name's Andrew. I'm a rising junior at CCA and I've played the viola for almost 3 years. Going over some ground rules before we start the Zoom call. Face cams are optional but encouraged if it's comfortable. And please try to mute yourself at all times. If you want to ask a question at any point in the live stream, you can type it in the chat or some smaller, simpler questions can be answered directly in the chat. As a heads up, we will be recording this live Q&A and publishing it at a later date, so if you feel uncomfortable with having your voice or name in our videos, please direct any questions you have through the chat. I'll be moderating today's live stream with Paul. Paul, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Paul. I'm the violin coach for you guys this year. Yeah, I mean, since this is Q&A, you guys can ask me pretty much anything, and I'll do my best to answer all of your questions. I'm the what do you call it, like resident guest artist at CCA, so I know Esther, Andrew, Chris, Diana, and like a few others. Um, yeah, so let's get started.
I guess I'll start with some pre-submitted questions. The first question is, how can I mesh well with my section?
How can you mesh well with your section?
Yeah, like.
All right. That's interesting. So I would say when you're in a section versus like if you're playing in chamber music or playing solo, for your teacher or something, like it's very different. And so I would say listening skills is one of the important things that you have to develop when you're in orchestra, and being just constantly being aware of your surroundings when you're playing the orchestra. I think one of the things, for me at least, uh, when I was in orchestra that I had to like kind of learn over time is you can't really hear yourself a lot of times, especially if the orchestra is like really loud and everybody's playing a lot. You can't really hear yourself, and therefore you might try to play louder so that you can hear yourself. And sometimes that actually kind of clashes sound wise with your section. And you might not be aware of that. And so that would be something that I would suggest that that's why in professional orchestras they always say play beautifully, because um, that's one of the things that makes an orchestra sound good, and it's that you're well aware of yourself and your surroundings so that you're not like over powering people sitting around you or something like that.
Yeah, that's good. How can I be a better string section leader?
String section leader. Um, I would say as if you're a principal of a section, um, you're there are like technical jobs that you have to do, like bowings and finger patterns if your section needs it. I would say if you're in high school, and if you're pretty advanced, you don't need somebody to tell you like which finger pattern to use, unless it's like a special kind of sound that you guys want um, as a section. But uh, but yeah, like just cueing, things like that too. Like practicing cueing is a real thing. It's not something that it just happens naturally. You have to like start working on how to learn how to cue, how to breathe, how to lead a section. Um, and one small thing, it doesn't matter how much you move your instrument, they're not going to see you in the back. So cue with your bow. They can see your bow. They can't see your violin or other instruments. So I guess for cellists it would be your head. You got to cue, like with your head, just show everybody. Um, yeah.
Yeah. On this call, there's a couple incoming CCA students who play strings. Do you have any advice for them or like any encouragement?
Incoming CCA students, huh? Well, it's gonna be fun. I'll tell you that. I haven't been I've been at CCA for 2 years, right? Um, and I mean, throughout this time, the orchestra has already grown a lot. I've learned a lot about each players, and if you're in the chamber, you'll be working with me a lot, and that will definitely um, be something I hope different for you. And if you're new, it's guaranteed it's going to be very different from your middle school orchestra. Okay, but working with Miss V too, and she's very very chill and relaxed, and we just create music and have fun. So that should be what you guys expect. And I do what I can to you know make it fun, but also make it a learning experience for you guys that are joining.
Yeah. Do you think that being scared on your chamber group or group members adds or detracts from the music being played?
Being scared.
Like if you're scared in like a chamber setting around
Ah,
your members.
yeah. Okay. Um, yes, I think if you're a shy player, this is why I personally like chamber music the most because it really takes 100% from all the members. Like in the quartet, the two violins, viola, and cello. It really takes 100% effort from everybody to create a good ensemble and good ensemble sound that you're going for. Um, so yeah, if you're shy, you have to learn to gain confidence and because as much as you're relying on somebody else, they're also relying on you, and your part could be playing a big role on that. And so a lot of times, if you're playing too soft and you have this important part, they can't hear you, and that doesn't help. So yes, I do think it's very important to develop confidence and not be shy. You know,
Yeah. This is a question that someone asked. Do you think strings are cool?
strings are cool. Um, I guess so. I mean, I'm a string player. I think strings are cool. Yeah.
Um, do you think it's logical to switch back to the violin if you're from another instrument? I don't like
Switch back.
I'm not 100% sure what this question was, but like someone was asking if it was logical to switch back to violin, I'm assuming from another string instrument. Like,
Uh-huh. Well, that's interesting. I would say most people that play two instruments or more, they always have one instrument that really is their main instrument, like myself. But so I would say if you can, try not to stop playing on if you're playing like violin and viola or violin and cello or piano and violin. I don't know. There's all sorts of different combinations, and I would say, actually don't stop playing on both, even if you're just having fun on one of them. Like it's always good to have more than just one instrument. Um,
yeah. How do I control myself from playing over the fingerboard?
that's a good question. I think there are a couple ways you can go about this. Number one, if you're really beginner and you're really young kids, I would usually tell them to put straws in the F holes, the little circle F holes kind of near the bridge one. And you put two little straws there, and then you have to tell them to play behind that, so in between the bridge and the straw, so that prevents them from pushing their bow to the other side. Um, but for you guys, if that doesn't really work for you, the mirror is your best friend. Looking always, I always practice in front of a mirror. Like always. It's never like I just never look at myself. So you would stand in front of the mirror, and what you have to do is you have to look at the bridge and try to keep it a straight line and watch your bow playing to parallel to the bridge. A lot of times you're not playing parallel and you're having a hard time keeping your bow away from the fingerboard, it's probably because your bow is slanted, and naturally you will want to move one way or another near the fingerboard or near the bridge. So keeping your bow parallel to the bridge uh, is, yes, it's important. And play slow bow. You can practice open strings for like uh, 30 minutes at your level. I would say 30 minutes is good. Just sit there, do really slow bow in front of the mirror, just stare at yourself. Okay, make sure your instrument isn't angled like sideways or anything like that. Um, yeah.
That's some good advice. There are some new people that joined your call, so can you tell them what you play and your musical background again?
Sure. I play both viola and violin. Viola is my main instrument. I started music when I was 4 years old, and my first instrument was piano. And and I think it's because my mom taught piano back then, and so I, just learned piano as my first instrument. Then I moved onto string instrument when I was in third grade, and then later, fast forward, I finished high school and went to San Francisco Conservatory of Music. That's where I got my bachelor's and master's in viola performance. Um, but yeah, I do teach privately both violin and viola, and I've been in youth orchestra programs like you guys, like SDYS and things like that. Um, yeah.
Are there certain drills that string players can practice to improve their sound quality, or does it just come with more music experience?
Sound quality. Hmm. What kind of sound quality are we looking for? I think that would be the first thing you have to figure out is what kind of sound are you going for? And I think now today we have technology where uh, you have professionals recording with really high tech mic, and they're playing in big concert halls and they're recording their piece. Um, and then you listen to it with your nice headphones and staring at them, and then maybe you watch them play, and then you're so inspired you want to go practice, and you practice and you start playing. You're like, oh my god, like why do I sound like this? But honestly, it's just because of that difference. Like you're listening to somebody who's playing on a very expensive instrument, probably with super nice mic that is right above them, and you're playing and they're playing in like a 2,000 seat concert hall, and it's like you can't compare yourself in the tiny little room. So sound quality, I would say, um, you have to know what sounds good and what doesn't sound good in your own setting. You can't just always try to copy somebody else's sound that you probably cannot actually produce if you're not in their same type of environment, if that makes sense. Always
Yeah,
be aware, like some rooms are much more um, uh, dry, and some rooms are much more ringing. And so it's always nice to play in the ringing room,
yeah,
right? But that's why they hold a lot of auditions in the dry room, because they hear everything. Like if you play with a bad sound, they're gonna hear that. Versus in the nice open room, and then you hear like some echo. It's like, oh, lovely, but mm, yeah.
do you have any tips on fourth finger vibrato?
Um, Treat it like your first, second, and third finger. Don't make it extra difficult just because you think it's difficult. That's my first advice for you on that, and uh, build strength on that. It's difficult, obviously, for violin and viola players on pinky vibrato, but build strength. And I have not seen a lot of the people play, but for myself, when I'm playing, my pinky, this joint right here, the one that's closer to the nail, the fingernail, this one will always be bent, obviously curved when I'm playing, but sometimes this back one right here will be straight. And I think that's okay among professional players. Some people do that, and that's completely fine. I would actually say most people do that. Not a lot of people have like a nice long pinky that they can just, round it out. But yeah, that's my advice. Is just build some strength, okay, and do it slow. Practice the same way that you would do for your other fingers, uh, but treat it like it's your other finger. Like don't think, oh, it's pinky. It's super difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How many hours should a student practice their instrument, and what should the ratio be for scales to etudes to pieces?
a very good question. Well, my first thought is if you're aiming for a like going into a music school, and you want to major in violin, viola, cello, whatever instrument, I would say you need at least 2 hours almost every day. I would say it's okay to take one day off, but you're gonna need at least 2 hours. Now I say at least 2 hours because when you grow as a professional, um, you're not just working on technique. You're working like everything. A lot of things is uh, up in the head, and and so when you're practicing and you're really focused, uh, ideally um, after you play for like 2 hours or so, your mind should start to feel kind of tired and slow, and you're like, oh, I'm out of it if you really focus in your practice. But in college, my teacher told me it's 3 hours minimum, not including orchestra, not including your chamber rehearsal with somebody else, nothing like that. This is your own time, 3 hours. Uh, but if you're doing it for fun and you just want to get better, then I would say, an hour, spend like a solid hour. And in terms of ratio, uh, I think that's something each musician have to discover themselves. Like I've gone through multiple phases before. I've gone through where I must play scales and like do all the scales, major and minor, every single time before I actually practice. And that itself, if I play all the scales, that's 45 minutes gone. Okay, and that's just warm up. Yeah, if you think about it, it's just warm up, and then you have your etude and then your other stuff after. Um, but if you're just doing for fun, maybe like one or two scales before you jump into your etude, uh, and then into your actual piece. Now there are some people that I know that don't really do that. It's just like whatever they feel like practicing, but they know they need to practice. It's not because like, oh, they enjoy and just want to have fun playing that piece that they already played it 100 times and they can easily play again. It's like they actually know they have to work on something and they just want to put some time into that. So it should be flexible in my opinion. You should not never just have one kind of practicing. But like I said, everybody has to find out what kind of person they are when it comes to practicing, so you can utilize your time for yourself the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Diana says, recording myself practicing can be pretty daunting. How do I make sure to give myself good feedback without being too critical?
Oh boy, yes. I don't like recording myself either. Can I just say that? Like recording yourself is like because you know everything that you did right and everything that you did wrong, but the spotlight is on everything that you did wrong. And so um, I would say when you're recording yourself, um, the first thing you should not do is check every single time after you record, because you're not going to you need to give yourself some time to be fresh, to then listen from a actual like third person perspective, when like as if you're listening to somebody else play on YouTube or Spotify or something, you know. um, so give yourself some time, like record for, I don't know, however long, 15 minutes or something. You can pause it and then click another one, but then like evaluate them at the end of your practice, maybe not like right away, if that makes sense. Okay. And also go for something that, like, aim for something. Don't just record and just for the sake of recording, but know what you're trying to get better at when you're recording. Like if you want to work on sound, then you focus on sound. If you're working on vibrato, then you're looking at vibrato mostly. Don't let other things distract you, like, oh my god, my bow here wasn't good, this wasn't good, that was, then you have too many things to worry about.
Yeah. There's some pretty advanced players in this call. Esther asked, like, what would you say are tips specifically for string players as they work on their musicality after like getting down to the notes of their piece?
Say that again.
Like, what tips would you have specifically for players as they work on their musicality after getting down all the notes of their piece?
Okay. um I would say the higher level you go, the less you have to worry about technique and the more you worry about your music. So if anything, it starts with the moment that you are actually learning your music. Like you give in a new piece when you're practicing it. for the first time, you might be learning the notes, but it won't take you very long. It might take you like, 5 to 10 minutes to get like a passage down. But then immediately right there and then you should be starting to think about how how to approach this piece. And I strongly suggest do some research. Research the composer, the time period that was composed in, um, even like if there's a premiere recording, like somebody that actually recorded, and that's the first time maybe the composer wrote for that person, then that's perfect too. You can look at that, and then you can check out different recordings, different players, how they play it, because all of these things can be taken into account into your own play. And but yeah, I think for beginner and intermediate students, that's when they have to really hone down their technique first and then start to think about musicality. But when you get more advanced, I think it's the other way around. You think about your musicality first, and then you ask yourself, how can you back your musicality with the technical knowledge that you have? I, I would say, yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Anthony asks, why do I get so sweaty when I practice? Is it because I put too much force into my bow or something related to that?
So they're talking about bow.
They're talking about why do they get so sweaty when they practice? If it's related to too much force on their bow.
I mean, it could be the room is hot. It could be the temperature nowadays. It's super hot right now. But uh, if you are tense, I would say, yeah, there's more chance of it doing that. Actually, this is something that you guys should look into. It's kind of interesting. I remember when I was in school, people talked about how some people enjoyed and they need to practice in a cold room versus somebody else say I cannot practice in a freezing room because then my fingers don't work. Uh, it's one or the other. I don't know, but I would say maybe test it out for yourself. Turn on the AC or just leave it off maybe, or keep it low and see what happens if you play better. But if you're actually tense when you're playing, I guess that could be it. But or if you're super focused, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Janice asks, what would your recommendation be for people who have received contradictory feedback from different teachers on interpretive elements in a piece they are planning to use for performance or audition?
Uh-huh. Hmm. That is hard. And if you're auditioning, here's my idea for you. Okay. If we're specifically talking about auditions, and then you play for different teachers, and before your audition, and they all give you different feedback, I would say do what you know. Like do what you know. Okay. And maybe look into what they said. If they say something that is like completely just bizarre, to whatever it is you're playing, like I would say some people would think like, oh, when it comes to Bach, uh, there's like huge difference between somebody wants to play it more romantically, like they want to romanticize the piece and play it like as if they're playing Tchaikovsky or something, and then there's the other end and people are like, oh, I'm really baroque about it, I'm going to play a super baroque style, and then there's like a mix of both, and it's like, what do you do? So this is like a huge thing when it comes to master classes, and you watch like somebody practice super hard on this Bach piece, and then like this master class teacher just tells them to basically do the opposite. And um, yeah, so it's a little tricky. Do what you know, and if it's like for an audition, don't change something drastically. It's better safe than sorry. But then again, if you're doing an audition, and let's say this is for like college, I think in my video I talked about how uh, if you guys are auditioning for music, major in college, you should definitely take lessons with the teacher or teachers that you're applying for. That's when you can show a little bit of you know, uh, music, maybe the differences. Or you can ask the teacher then too. That might help you in your audition. Like they say, oh, I prefer this piece to be played kind of more like this or something, and they help you with that, and then you do your audition, and then you do what they say. That's a bonus point for you, kind of thing.
So like adding on to the previous question where I was asking about if you would rather listen to your regular private teacher or someone that you would want to audition to study with, you would probably choose the one that you're auditioning for, right?
I think you should listen to the the one that you're auditioning for, and then if this is like a month or two before your audition and you take a lesson with them, then go back, tell your private teacher, tell them what they think. I hope your private teacher isn't like, no, that's not good or something like that. You know, that would be crazy. I hope that they kind of agree and maybe just help you along with it. You know, I definitely have had teachers tell me like just something a different teacher complete like to not say or do. So, but do what you can. That's you know,
Mm,
yeah. Take it in and kind of evaluate. But if your private teacher is willing to help you, then I think that's good.
yeah. Esther asks, can you talk about the importance of chamber ensembles, especially for string players, and name a few famous ensembles that you would personally recommend people would listen to?
Wait, say that again. Importance of
Um,
chamber
yeah.
ensembles, especially for string players. I think chamber music is like the heart of music, I would say. You know, orchestra is just like a big giant chamber group, basically. If you want to think of it that way. Even playing like sonatas, you know, you have a piano and then you have yourself. That's chamber music right there. Uh, um, I would say um, you know, chamber ensembles teach you a lot about listening, teach you a lot about playing in tune with other players, not just yourself. Teach you how to work with somebody else. You know, this is one of the reasons why we do it in CCA, or why I ask, you know, Ms. V to start it, is it's very important to know how to work with one another when it comes to playing in music ensemble, and not just always be a follower. In chamber music, you can't just be a follower, you know. And I would say in chamber music, you as a group you have to learn how to make decisions. Like you play one phrase. First, Alan says, "I want to do this," and then the cello says, "I want to do this," and then it's like, what do you do? You know, as a good musician, you should be able to execute both ideas as well as you can, and then as a group, you decide. Now, here's the thing: if you don't know how to decide it, and you guys can't come to a conclusion, you just vote. That's it. You just vote for it. You know, and plus, if you have like two different like performances on it or something, then you can say, oh, let's do it this way, and then the other performance you do it the other way. Like, why not? You know, you can be open about it. Uh, as for famous ensembles, I think Emerson Quartet is definitely one of the top. Uh, and personally, I really like. I think they're the Telegraph Quartet. These are people that I know, and they're really good. So their Telegraph Quartet is currently, I think, like residence chamber teachers at San Francisco Conservatory. They're like a younger generation, but they have won fish off and like big competitions, and so they're like really good. Um, but yeah, like, but be open though. You know, be open. There's like so many quartets out there and so many different ways. When you hear one piece played by all, you know, different quartets, it's pretty cool. You know, be open to it, and yeah.
Yeah. Chris asks, sometimes I get dark marks on my left hand fingertips after I practice. Am I doing something wrong?
Is your string old?
Um,
Is
I
that
don't think so.
no? Interesting, huh? Do you clean your strings?
Yes, I wipe
Yes.
them after I practice.
Okay. Interesting. I would say it's I would say it's normal. I wouldn't say I get like, well, my fingers are more like indents, like they're indents on there. Now I think if you move so much, maybe that can happen. Like I don't know, dead skin or something, or if you're like shifting a lot or whatever. Maybe, or you accumulate whatever is on the string. But um, if it hurts, then I would say that's something else. But if it doesn't hurt and it's not bothering you and it's just a visual thing, I think that's okay. But I'm not a doctor. All right.
Yeah. Esther asks, what are your favorite parts of teaching CCA or teaching music in general?
I think it's when the student finally have the aha moment and then you just watch their face and then they get it and then it's like, oh, yeah, you know. Um, but I think teaching at CCA is fun because it's not like any other schools I work at. I feel like I have a lot of freedom there, and I feel like um, CCA runs the orchestra in a very fluid way. Like you guys can do a lot of different things and not just one thing. Um, and so that's always fun. And plus like being able to actually work with advanced players and not having to worry too much about technique is always a bonus because at the end of the day when if I'm teaching like middle school kids you just down bow up bow down bow up bow like things like that. Um, and yeah, no, but teaching music in general, what I love the most is just, when a student finally gets something and seeing them to hone their skills and hone their patience and their dedication, you know, like just seeing them just over time starting to become a actual musician and not somebody who just plays the instrument, but somebody who understands how to go from point A to point B and reach their goals.
Yeah. Um, are you, Sophia asks, are you double jointed?
No, I am not double jointed. No.
Um, Regarding strings, how do you choose strings and how often should you change and clean them?
Um, if you play like 8 hours a day, you should probably change them every 2 weeks. But but I would say regularly. Strings aren't cheap especially if you buy nice ones. So don't go crazy. Maybe every 3, 4 months or so, maybe even 5. If you don't play that much, that you don't need to change it often. But if your string is false, you should definitely look into that. Or if it's about to break, you should look into that. And always have a backup set. Always, like always have a backup set. Okay.
Chris asks, do you have favorite genres or musicians outside of classical music?
Yes. I do. When I was in high school, which was like 2000 before 2011. I graduated 2011 in high school. So before that, this is when some of you might know K-pop was becoming like a really mainstream thing. So I listened to a lot of groups like Big Bang and like back then like Girls' Generation or 21 or Super Junior or blah 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 things like that. But I have to say there is one favorite artist and he's G Dragon um, from Big Bang, and he the reason I like him is because he's himself. He's himself. When it comes to music, he's not lying. He's not uh, just some pretty face dancing and singing on stage. He's his own person. He doesn't really care too much about what others think. Um, yeah, that's what I aspire to be. I would say. Um, uh, yeah, but I would say like classical music is such a like you must do things this way and that way. And then when you see something crazy and and everybody goes nuts, they're like, oh, you can't do that, like you can't be like that, why are you like this, you know. Like I don't know if you've seen this guy, I think he's Korean. He was a, is definitely like a really really good violinist, but he wears like really dark like eyeshadow. I forgot his name. It's some Korean name, and he has his hair like he has pretty long hair and has it like straight up like that. And then he wore this. I think it was like a white, like almost like a dress, like a Greek style thing. I think that's what it was, and he performed. Like that. Like I think it was at Carnegie Hall. He like performed like that. Is looks wise, he's like what, you know. And you start to see people being so like oh you can't do that. Like why are you not wearing something formal or whatever it is? But it's like who cares? We're just people in the end, you know. Like are you there for the music? Or are you there for the looks? Uh,
Yeah. A student asks, how do I improve playing fast while crossing strings?
Slow practice and understanding mechanically speaking what is happening with your bow arm when you are crossing strings. Here's my advice: it's always your arm should always move first before your bow when it comes to fast playing and crossing strings really fast. Arm goes first before your bow, not the other, not at the same time, and definitely not bow first. Okay.
Um, how would a student practice shifting efficiently?
Um, I think I showed it in the video, but uh, when you practice shifting, I would say in the first few tries that you do, or maybe even the first like real practice session that you do, you're gonna be worrying about like point A and then point B, right? You're gonna be worrying about landing on that correct spot and on the correct note, and that's what you're gonna hear. And I think um, students have to incorporate the part of understanding how to get there and not just get there, because a lot of times you see students that just learn how to shift. It's like super fast, and it sounds like when they landed up there, it sounds like they just step on the brake super hard, and their finger might stutter a little bit or something. Know how to get there uh, relaxed and not so jumpy, and so that requires you to understand to how to get uh, being able to release and then land without squeezing your finger.
Yeah. Um, Anthony asks, what is your favorite style of classical music?
My favorite style, oh I guess you're talking about like baroque or romantic or late classical or neo. I would say mm, I'm not too big of a fan of baroque music. um, like more romantic slash impressionist, um, I would say, in that um, kind of way. So like I like music that like Hindemith or uh, for viola composers, Rebecca Clark is a very big name. I like them because like they derail a little bit, you know, but it's not crazy. It's not completely like gone, and you're just like, what am I doing? You know, like it still makes sense to the listener, but in the way that it just explores more uh, in emotions, maybe even. Yeah.
Um, Esther asks, what would you say are some common mistakes made by string players in an orchestra, or things that bug you when you're at the podium?
Ah. So one of the things that is probably a pet peeve of mine is when an orchestra doesn't function uh like I'm talking about the section players. Like so let's say a principal just told you they didn't even tell you. Let's just say a principal decides to mark a down bow for this part. or change up the bowing for another part. They mark it down in their music, and then the second stand behind them is just chatting away or not paying attention whatsoever. And the ideal thing is whoever's sitting in the second stand is aware of the principal that just wrote something down. They look, they copy. The third stand does the same thing with the second stand and just passes along all the way out there. I think I've definitely been in those situations where I'm not sitting in principal. I'm sitting maybe second stand or something, and I copy it down, and then I would look at the person behind me, and then they would copy it down. And by the time it's all the way down there, then the principal turns around and says, "Oh, I did this thing," and we're like, "Yeah, we got it. It's already there. You don't have to worry about it." And this makes the whole system run much more efficiently. Yeah, just because you're in a section, just because you're like sitting in the back, doesn't mean you're bad. Doesn't mean you're not part of the group and you don't list, you don't even do anything. Yeah, it's these little things that really makes a difference, running a smooth orchestra, and also means that they're paying attention. Yeah, if they're writing things down, most likely they're aware of what's going on and not just like, what do I do? After they sit there for like 2 minutes and then you're like, measure 54, and they're still sitting there and looking at the sky or something. Um, yeah.
Yeah. A student asks, what is the best way to fix intonation problems?
Mm. Um, Intonation. First thing you should do is you should have a tuner on. Okay. Um, and fixing intonation is not so much of putting my finger down, looking at it. Oh, it's out of tune. Let me slide it around. Oh, that's fine now. And I just keep moving on forward. That's not what intonation is. Intonation is about being able to place it down in tune on the spot without making a change. So it's this motion that you have to fix. It's not sliding around and making sure it's in tune that you have to fix. There's no sliding around when you're actually playing music. You have to be able to just put it down and make it in tune. So I would say often when students practice intonation, they just, oh yeah, it's tuner says in tune after they slide their finger around, and then they keep going. And then they go back later and try to play it and it's not in tune again. Or the next day when they try to practice and it's not in tune again, they're thinking to themselves, they're frustrated, they're like, why can't I do this? Well, because you didn't practice it the right way. You didn't focus on the right thing. The right thing is to being able to put it down in tune. So if you're practicing scales, for example, you should be playing one note, and then when you play a new note, if it's out of tune, you're allowed to slide it just to listen to what sounds in tune, and then you take your finger off again, then you put it back on again to see if you get that motion down, and then you repeat that motion a few times until you move to the next finger and next finger. And I would say once you have like 4 fingers down or something, then you can try the pattern. And then that becomes more of a bigger picture when you do a pattern. Then it's a hand frame thing, not just one finger thing. If that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Esther asks, do you have any tips for improving on sight reading?
Um, I do somewhat believe in being able to read faster if you practice sight reading. But that said, uh, your technical ability and just how long you have been playing the instrument or how much time you have been spending when you practice and stuff, that goes into sight reading level and sight reading skills. So you have to up everything. It's not just like I can get my sight reading really good all of a sudden. It's kind of like everything has to come together in order to support sight reading music at a higher level. And I would say ear training is super important when it comes to sight reading. Sometimes your ear listens and your fingers move before you can even think. When you're looking at new music, it just happens because your ear hears it and it's going a certain direction, so your fingers want to move that way, and that's when you have really good connection between listening and playing left hand.
Yeah. A student says, I'm having pain when I hold my viola. Does it mean that my technique is wrong?
Yes, the way you're holding your viola is probably wrong. For violas, I would say evaluate your shoulder rest positions, okay? Because I would say viola is like such, it's like a little bit bigger than violin. It doesn't look that big, but it's bigger and it's also heavier. So when we put it on, a lot of times we just want to like, you just want to like sink down and disappear. But like, yeah, to learn how to sit up still, sit up straight, and go into playing position, and turn your head slightly and just drop. That should be the motion. Ideally, you shouldn't have to like make weird adjustments trying to get that. Okay. I know sometimes left shoulder likes to go down too much just to like, hold the instrument up, like support from here, not support from your hand. So this will keep your hand more free, more relaxed.
Yeah. Esther asks, what would you say directors look for in principals or leaders of the section?
Mm. In an audition?
Um, I'm assuming so, yeah.
I would say in an audition, they're not, well, if it's a blind audition, then it's probably playing level. Okay, if it is probably playing level, but most times it's not the case. Okay, even in professional orchestras, they have trial periods for these concert masters that they're trying out. It's not just like, oh, this guy's good at his playing, and then he might not be very good section leader kind of thing, you know. So I would say one of the things, if it wasn't even playing, it's how you are as a person, um, communicating and just overall how you are interacting with other people around you. That's one important thing. Like it's less likely for super shy, never talked once a person to sit up at principal because they have to communicate. They have to know how to direct their section and maybe the rest of the sections. And so it's a little bit bigger picture than that, but I would say youth orchestras is usually your playing level first. That's just how it is, SVYs, things like that. Uh, but when you get like more professional, it's not just, I would say it's not just play because they can all play. They can all play their excerpts perfectly. Like it's how you are in um, the relationship with other people.
Yeah. A student asks, sometimes when I play, the sound created is squeaky. Is there a way to fix that?
Sound that they
Like,
create is squeaky.
yeah, probably from the strings.
Okay. Well, I mean, there's many reasons. Like you could be pressing too hard. You might have too much rosin on there too. Your bow might be slightly angled. You might be playing too close to the bridge. Those are all a lot of things that you can take a look at when you're practicing. Yeah.
Um, Another question was, some days I can play my instrument, but other days I can't. Why
Mm,
is that?
yeah, I know what that feels like. It's like you have a great day of practice today, and tomorrow you have no idea what you're holding. Um, so I would say when you are practicing, this is where the patience and like self-discipline and dedication comes into. This is what I would say teaches you when you learn violin or string instrument, because it's not like an instrument like drumming and hitting. It's like you have so many things that you have to worry about when it comes to playing a string instrument that teaches a lot. And so when you're having a bad day, don't just give up. You could take maybe like a 10 minutes break, but a lot of times you have to take a step back, just evaluate yourself first. Like ask yourself, like, what is it you're trying to accomplish? Are you accomplishing it with the techniques or whatever it is that you're trying to go for? Like, are you backing it up with that? And are you aware of what you're doing when you're playing? Because sometimes it's just movement and this is not working and that's not practicing. Practicing is for this and muscle memory. It's not just, play this passage 100 times and hopefully you got it now. Uh, that's, you know, yeah.
Um, Anthony asks, how much time should we spend looking over the sight reading part for auditions?
So I see. No more than 15 seconds. no more than 15 seconds. I would say even 10 seconds is like good because they're not there to, sit there and just like let you look at it forever and then play beautifully after that. They want to see how well your reading skills are and just able to keep up. Um, what they don't want to see, maybe this is something useful. What they don't want to see is you starting over and over and over and over again. Okay, you make a mistake, you just keep going. There's no returning. This is what sight reading is. They're not looking for perfection. I mean, ideally, yeah, it would be nice if somebody can play perfectly, but most times you might make mistakes here and there. It's to just keep on going. Count your rhythms. Rhythm is first, and then notes. Rhythm first, notes, bowing, and then dynamics and all that other stuff. Okay.
Esther asks, can you comment on the importance of second violins?
Second violin is very important, just like a viola. I would say a lot of times, people are like, oh, first violin, oh, cellos, and all that stuff. But first violin, second violins, and even viola, we play like that middle voice that ties it all together. And without them, it's gonna sound very very uh, weird. So that's why second violins always like step it up. You guys gotta play louder. Even in quartets, like you see this a lot where they demand more from the second violinist. Now they might be playing big already, but it's not enough. Yeah, and it could just be because like they're sitting even just like a feet back, and that's what causes like them to not be able to have their sound. Or if the first violin is playing, like the second violin had to push their sound out further uh, than the first, and so yeah, second violin is super important. There's a lot of stuff in their parts that without them, it's like, it wouldn't be the same kind of music.
Um, a student asks, how do I know if a middle or side chin rest is better for me?
Test them out. Like go into a shop. I would say here in San Diego, go into a shop with the most inventory. Probably the violin shop. Probably. When it comes to chin rest, I would say they probably have it. But yeah, don't be afraid. Just go in there and I would just say like I would like to try chin rest, and so you put it on, or do you have them help you put it on, and then you give it a try and then you see. Um, Now I have personally gone through that problem when I was in college because I'm a tall person. I'm kind of tall, and so like the distance, the space here is a lot longer than I would say normal people, and so I have to like look for a taller chin rest. And there are even luthiers out there that could actually add height to your chin rest. So if you know you like a certain piece, a certain chin rest height, or sorry, like the style, like you like that specific one that fits well with your chin, but it's not tall enough or something, you could potentially take it into a shop and ask them to raise it up for you. They can either add wood on there if it's a skilled luthier to do it, or they might add cork. Like the wine cork that's what they put on underneath in between the instrument and the chin rest. So they might raise that up a little bit, but it's usually better to not do either of those. The cork, if it's too high, it becomes unstable. If it's wood, it becomes heavier, and you don't want to add too much weight onto your instrument. And so then some people resort to doing the shoulder rest extension um, too. That could be it, like the feet they can extend in and check out. But if you're trying out chin rest, just go into a shop and test it out. Like there's no harm in that. Just like buying an instrument, just go test it out. Yeah.
Sophia asks, do you have a mantra or something that you always think about when you're performing, teaching, and practicing?
I would say it'll be different for all three. For performing, I would say so many people are probably more worried about like not being nervous, and it's like a kind of thing. So it's actually for performance, I would say it's more so being free, because the first thing you want to do when you're performing is you want to be still. You don't want to move because people are watching and all that stuff. So it's just being free, but there are ways to go around that. Some people like to think more technically. So I've seen people like David Kim, the Philadelphia concertmaster violinist. He says that before his performance, he likes to think about where his feet is. Then he likes to think about how like his legs coming up and then torso and just like overall body, like he's there and his stance is good before he starts, before he even brings his violin up to here and play. Like he likes to think about all that. But then there are other people like Ray Chen. You know, you've seen him talk about his performance like ritual beforehand. Like he likes to make a joke, crack a joke before he go exit the stage, because that makes the person laugh, the or the security or whoever, the door person, and then they laugh, and that makes you a little more relaxed too and laugh, and you know, and you go out, and guess what? Nobody out there knows what just happened, only you, and so you can, and brings a face onto your uh, brings a smile onto your face, and you know, people see you very happy, but they have no idea that you just cracked a joke in the back, you know, things like that. um, Teaching, mm, mantra, I would say more just not treating every student the same. That I think that's always a challenge. You know, you teach one thing to one student, and you just subconsciously might want to teach it to a different student. But everybody's different. Everybody's working on their own pace, and so um, learning how to work around that, and not just giving up. You know, that because one person, you might just say one thing, one little thing, and then all of a sudden it clicks with them. And so it a lot of times, you know, you can't like give up on. I just don't like it when you see teachers like that. They just tell you one thing, and if you can't do it, they're like, oh, let's move on. You didn't solve anything. You didn't teach anything. Um, yeah, and practicing is just having a goal. Just having a goal when you go into practice. Don't just start playing. Yeah, have a goal, and then go practice.
Yeah. Well, we're nearing like the end of the hour, so if anyone has any last minute questions, now is a good time to ask. If no one asks any questions, Paul, do you have any parting words or tips for musicians?
That's a very general
Yeah.
thing to say, but uh, I would say ask yourself why you play the instrument. Um, uh, I see that a lot in students and even my own private students. I challenge them and ask them, why do you play the violin or the viola or whatever it is? And a lot of times they look at me confused, and then they stand there for like 15 seconds and they cannot say an answer because they have never thought about it, you know. And I think some of you probably have never thought about why you play your instrument too, or why do you want to keep playing it. It's always good um, to ask yourself that. Not don't and hopefully the answer is not just, oh, my mom told me to, or something like that. Okay. Yeah.
Well, thank you for your insight, Paul.
Yeah, no problem.
Um,
There's a lot of
I
good questions. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I guess that's. Oh, sorry. Was someone talking?
I talked. I just said thank you. And for all of you guys coming to CCA, like it is so cool having Paul as our coach because, you know, he's pretty young and like we can talk to him as friends, but he's also like our teacher who, you know, can make us better musicians. So definitely be hyped if you're coming here. And we just want to say thank you so much, Paul, for.
Yeah. My pleasure. Pleasure is mine. And those of you coming to CCA, I'm excited to meet you guys and to, you know, work with you guys. But if I had to say one thing, though, I don't ask for perfection, but I ask for you know, putting in some hard work. So and respect. Yeah, if you that's super important. So I'll respect you as long as you respect me.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, no problem.
Have a great rest of your day,
Yeah,
Paul.
you too. Have a
Bye.
good one, guys. Bye
Bye.
bye.